Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Ms. Copeland. Hello, DCPS parents and guardians, and welcome to our Parent Academy session on supporting your third through fifth grade reader at home. My name is Gina Edwards, and I'm excited to be here with you this evening. Let me go ahead and share my screen with you so that you can see everything that you need to see, and we will go ahead and get started this evening. So go ahead and get my camera off so that you can see everything that you need to see. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. And so, first thing that we're going to do in this session, we'll begin by looking at how our students will be assessed at the end of the year on their Florida Assessment of Student Thinking, otherwise known as our FAST assessment. And then we will be moving into resources and support that can be used in the home setting, and examining ways to support your students' reading and writing at home. At this time, the schedule on screen reflects the testing window for this year. So I'm going to give you just a minute to look over that. So this is called the progress monitoring, or PM. This does occur 3 times throughout the year, and we call that PM1, PM2, and PM3. And the Florida Department of Education, they have, as you see on screen, what they have listed for us is that the administration windows have been established in order to provide schools with a maximum scheduling flexibility. They do not reflect the amount of time one school will spend administering the test. In other words, they're given the entire window in order to give them some flexibility in that time. So the first two dates that you see here are for progress monitoring, given in the beginning and middle part of the year. So you see PM1, we're currently in that window. That started at the beginning of our school year, August 14th, and runs through September 25th. So that is just about over. And that's the beginning of the year test. And then we'll have PM2. That is the middle of the year to progress monitor how students are doing compared to the beginning of the year. So we're checking students' progress in December, and that will be from December 4th through January 26th, though it actually is December and January. And then PM3, or Progress Monitoring Test 3, that is the end of the year. That is May 1st through May 31st. And that will be used for school accountability. And that test is very important for third grade promotion. All of these assessments will be given online. All of these assessments, again, are taken on the computer. Okay. This screen shows you the assessment time allocations for these FAST assessments. This shows you that each of these assessments are administered in one session and one day. It is also recommended by the Florida Department of Education that students only take one subject test per day. So if you'll see here on the screen that in grades 3 through 10 in reading, they are given 90 minutes for progress monitoring tests 1 and 2, and then 120 minutes for progress monitoring test 3 for reading. And the asterisk here indicates at the bottom to show us the reason why for progress monitoring 3, it is given slightly longer than PM1 and 2 because the assessments contain embedded field test items. So it's given a little bit longer for that assessment. And then likewise in third through fifth mathematics, it's also a little bit longer as well, as you can see on that screen. And then, of course, sixth through eighth mathematics doesn't apply to this particular session. Okay, so that's just giving you the time allocation that is allowed for those. So let's talk a little bit about those tests and the item types that students will see. We have been told that narrative writing may be a tested genre in the future. However, it is not as of right now. What we do know is that we do have response essay for grades 4 and 5 for this year. Again, as they had last year, they have expository writing, which is informational, and argumentative writing, so giving an opinion. Okay, so that is what we have been told at this time. And what we do know is that the third grade FAST ELA assessment just has the one component, and that is reading. The writing component of the FAST is administered in one session that is 120 minutes. And they do have one break in that session. And then for reading on all grades 3 through 5, they also have a break. It is a 120 minutes also, and it is separate from writing. And it is also, they will also have a break in that time. And they also will have some possible question types that students will see. For writing, we do not know in advance if the prompt will be argumentative or expository. But what we're going to do now is take a closer look at some of those item types so that you can see an example of what those look like. Okay? This will show you a kind of a list of what those could look like in a reading, and we're going to look at each one of these. So they could be selectable hot text, which means that students might be able to highlight different text on the screen, or multiple select, multi-part text, multimedia, or table match. So let's look at those. So again, in writing, we're going to look at those just a little bit closer before we look at the reading ones. So in grades 4 through 5, again, this is a separate assessment. The writing component is scored separately from reading. It does not contribute to their overall ELA score. So the score that they see on writing is a separate score from the score that they see on reading. And they do use a 12-point rubric for that scoring in the response, and that is their just their separate writing score. For that raw score to have meaning, it must be converted to another type of score to allow for a uniform comparison to other students taking the identical test to measure of progress or for other reasons. And that percent correct, percentile rank, and the developmental standard and grade equivalent, those are all examples of the scores derived from raw scores. Remember that this is just a brief overview of the writing component. As we get closer to the test date, parent academies that explore the FAST components in greater depth will be offered. And again, those will be either in argumentative opinion writing or expository, which means informational. We also wanted to point out to you that students' essays will be typed because these, again, are offered only on the computer. So students will be expected to type their essay. And we point that out to let you know that students will need to be practicing typing. They are doing that in the schools, and we do have different typing programs that students do use in the classrooms at schools, and we do recommend that students do practice some online typing at home. There's various different typing programs that you can do, lots of free online typing programs, and I will be placing some in the chat at the end that we recommend that we use in the classroom. But any typing practice that you would like to have them do, there's lots of free typing resources. We'll give them a leg up on that so that they will be able to more freely type their thoughts as opposed to thinking through where to find their keys on the keyboard so that they can think through their typing, thinking through their responses. So that's going to be important for them when it comes time to take that writing test. Okay, so let's look at some of those item types for reading. This is one of the multiple choice items. This is probably the item type that we are the most familiar with from our own childhood testing experience. For this item type, there is only one correct answer. Give you just a minute to read that. Students are given one question with one answer choice. And that's just a traditional multiple choice question. Then we have the multi-select item type. And in this case, the multi-select item type, it will indicate in the question itself how many answers are required. As you see in the question, it says, with which two sentences would the author agree? So students are told how many answer choices they need to select. And for this item type, there is an all or none scoring situation. In other words, students must have all answers correct in order to receive credit for this item. For reading, the question will always specify how many correct answers there are. This is not the case in other subject areas, but in reading, it does always tell them. So that's multi-select. Another type of multi-select item they might see is when the answer choices are embedded within the passage. So take a look at this one. It asks students to fill in the circle before the two sentences that show how online classrooms and regular classrooms are alike. And as you see, the answer choices appear before each sentence, and students must choose two sentences. So for example, if students are choosing this first sentence and maybe the third sentence, they would have to choose answer choice A and C. Or in the case that we had said, the hot text item, they might have to highlight the sentence A and the sentence C. They would actually highlight the text. So that's another option if it was a hot text item. And then we come to the table match item. And in this case, for a table match, we have where students are able to be asked to fill in circles to create a summary of a passage by putting events in the correct order. Again, it is an all or none scoring. Students are encouraged to take their time and put what we call one car in each row of the parking lot. In other words, they cannot choose more than one choice in each of these rows. So if you see in this row, you have an A, B, C, D, so they would be choosing one here and one here and one in this row and then one in this row. So they are able to only do that. So I have to put them in the correct order, which one comes first and which one comes next, and then and finally. And finally, we have a multi-part or what we call EBSR items. And that EBSR stands for evidence-based selected response. So students are choosing something that is based on evidence in the text. And what that means is that students have a part A question, and it always tells them this question has two parts. So that first they must answer part A, and then they answer part B. So both parts must be correct in order to receive credit. And typically, part B will support or provide the evidence for that selection that they've chosen in part A. So typically they will have a question in part A. So it's asking them here, if you see this, a question about passage one, with which statement would the author agree based on this information. And then part B will often ask them for a piece of evidence from the text that supports whatever answer they chose in part A. So something from the text that supports that answer. Citing evidence from that text is what they're trying to shoot for here in this evidence-based response. It's trying to make sure that the students are not just randomly guessing, is what that's looking for. And again, with all of these item types, we practice those in the classroom many, many times throughout the year so that students are very familiar with that. Okay. And the last type of item that we have is what we call multimedia. And multimedia, all that means is that with whatever item type that we have, which could be any of these item types, whether it's a typical multiple choice item or a multi-select item, it is paired with something they need to look at, whether it's a picture, in this case, an image, a photograph, or a diagram or a table that they have to look at paired with whatever their question is. That is a multimedia. So we have a lot of those. We have different images, charts, photographs, or graphics that may be included. And they may appear within the passages or in the test items themselves. But for any multimedia item, the students must refer to that image or chart in order to answer the question. Okay, so that's the multimedia type. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a pretty good overview about the types of questions that students see on the ELA or Reading Fast test. If you're still wondering about FAST, we will be looking at that live. I'm going to show you how you can go directly to the parent information page on our Florida assessment page. I'm going to show you exactly where to get there at the end of the present in a little bit. Okay, and I'll get lots more questions about that. So, we want to know if you ever wonder why so many teachers assign students reading as homework and often approximately 20 minutes of that. So, why should you support their reading and writing skills at home? Well, there's a well known study by Nagy and Herman that indicates that students who read at least 20 minutes daily have a clear literacy advantage over kids who read quite a bit less or don't read at all. So if you take a look at the graphic that's on your screen, if student A reads about 20 minutes a day or 3,600 minutes in a school year, that's what that equates to outside the school day. That means that they're reading 1,800,000 words outside of their school day, and that puts them in the 90th percentile of where they need to be. Student B, who reads an extra 5 minutes 5 minutes each day, that means that they're reading about 900 minutes in a school year, giving them exposure to about 282,000 words, and that puts them in about the 50th percentile of where they would need to be. But student C, who's only reading on average about 1 minute each day, that gives them about 180 minutes in a school year. That's giving them only 8,000 words that they're being exposed to, and that puts them down in the 10th percentile of what they need to be. By the end of sixth grade, student A, reading just 20 minutes a day, will have read the equivalent of 60 whole school days. Student B will have read only 12 school days. Which student would you expect to have a better vocabulary? And what we know is that that really sets them up for success. It's helping them in school and in life. And that's why we're really encouraging you to help your student, um, encouraging them to read at home. And that's one of the reasons why we're reminding you to, even when your students say, "Hey, I don't have any homework," one of those things that we say to them, why students should never say, "I don't have any homework." Well, just maybe a little bit of reading would be good for them each night. That 20 minutes each night really does go a very long way in setting your student up for success. So, how can we as parents support our students at home? Wide reading, or reading a wide variety of genres beyond just fiction and nonfiction, but also poetry, song lyrics. Um, they cover of diverse topics. They impact students' comprehension. While we always want to encourage the use of comprehension strategies, the role of background knowledge is critical. We know that there's a study about students who have been able to be exposed to a wide variety of research. There was a research study about students who have been um, exposed to all kinds of different texts and how they are able to do just as well as students who have not been able to, that are not as good of readers, but that just because they were able to, they knew more about a topic than students who didn't know as much about it. They performed just as well on the test um, than students who were really good readers, just because they understood what the topic was about. And so just having your students being able to read and be exposed to all of those different background knowledge of different things, is something that we know really helps them. But beyond that, just doing the reading alone really helps them. So that's just something that we know, all kinds of things really, just being able to expose them to lots of books and a wide variety really is very good for your students. So please encourage your child to read outside of school. So, how can we encourage our students to engage in wide reading outside of school? Make it fun. Whether or not readers understand the text depends far more on how much background knowledge and vocabulary they have relating to the topic, then on how much they've practiced their comprehension skills. And this quote was by Daniel Willingham of the National Assessment of Educational Progress. So, again, we want to make reading fun for our students. It is an essential step in learning to read good books and read aloud. We know that parents who read aloud to their children are teaching literacy concepts simply by sharing books. So, encourage your children to listen, ponder, and think about what you're reading to them. Let them make comments and ask questions about what you're reading to them. Have discussions with them about it. It's okay to abandon a book. Be flexible enough to stop reading a book that doesn't appeal to you and your student after a reasonable try at reading it. No one is meant to enjoy every single book, and no one, especially a child, should be forced to read or listen to books that end up being boring to them. Picture books are good at any age. Even after children have outgrown picture books, they still enjoy hearing a story read aloud. Hearing a good story read aloud, especially if it is just a little beyond a child's own capabilities, is an excellent way to encourage independent reading. Not all books are best read aloud. Some are better enjoyed silently. But young children want to read what makes them laugh or cry, shiver and gasp. Children need the thrill of imagining, of being for a time in some character's shoes for a spine tingling adventure. They want to experience the delight and amazement that comes with hearing a playful language. For children, reading must be equated with enjoying, imagining, wondering, and reacting with feeling. If not, we should not be surprised if they refuse to read. So let your child sometimes choose the book or story that they want you to read to them. And this information comes from readingrockets.org, um, where they give us some encouragement about 25 activities for reading and writing that can be fun. So, again, we want to encourage our students to engage in a lot of reading outside of school and making it fun. So if you're ever interested in doing and taking a look at that, Reading Rockets is a great website to give you lots of encouragement about that. Also, encouraging your students to have to engage in stories and poems that reflect what they may have felt for themselves is another idea that they shared with us. And there's that article link. Sorry, I forgot that was going to pop up on the screen for us. So now I wanted to just encourage you of a few areas that you can encourage your child to read with some real life reading. When you're looking at, whoops, sorry, I clicked the wrong button. With cooking, you can do some, engage your child with some reading when you do some cooking. Show your child a recipe and go over it together. Remember, when you're looking at that recipe, that's important when it comes to order. For example, why the order matters in a recipe. Of course, the sequence of that recipe is important. Children won't even realize that they're reviewing the reading in the process, but sequencing of events in a story is very important. That's actually a reading standard that we practice starting in first grade, and goes on as students go up, of course, into third through fifth grade as well. So students need to be able to know that all the way starting in at a young age. So knowing that with recipes will really help set the stage for them, and be able to do that. So ask them to read the recipe to you as you work and explain why each of these steps must be done in a special order. And encourage them to write down other recipes from cookbooks and websites that he or she would like to help make. And that's giving them some practice not only with their reading, but also with their writing at the same time. You can also let your child read those ingredients needed in a recipe and create that shopping list together so that they're bringing in math skills when determining which size of the products to buy. So that's another way to get them involved with you and also give you some help in the kitchen. And of course, if you do go out to eat, have your child read from a menu to order for themselves. To support your child's writing skills, keeping a journal is a great way for your child to write down their daily events and record his or her thoughts. Again, thinking about those events in a specific order can help them think about those sequence of events. They can also think about when things were happening and the beginning, middle, and end of things. Um, you can help get them excited about this by building excitement, allowing them to choose to their journal. Um, or you can always let them use a plain journal and then let them decorate it. You can allow them to write down some daily events, record their thoughts, help them kickstart that activity by identifying some topics that they want to write about, that they're interested in, even something that they'd like to research, that they want to, something that they maybe they would or triggered some interest at school and that they want to research some more about, or maybe some friends or school or home that they just want to sit and write some more, even some poetry. And you could even keep a journal too and compare notes at the end of the week. So that's always a fun way to connect with your child. And then read aloud when it's time to share. Another idea is to get some help from Hollywood. Choose a character from a favorite TV show or movie to use in a story that they like to write, that they might want to write. Or become a TV or a movie critic, watch a show together, and write a review explaining your opinion of the show. And have your child do the same and then compare your reviews. And then, as a parent, look for a movie based on a book that your child is reading or has recently read and have a movie night and compare the two versions of the story. Think about the characters and the plot and discuss which version you felt was better and support it with evidence from the book or the movie and say, like I liked this part better or this part of the book was better than the movie. So there's lots of versions of that out there. Great books are often made into movies. So this is a generation that has always who has always known the internet. So work with your child's interests and favorite shows and movies, and don't be afraid to tap into that. So I wanted, to remind you that I was telling you we will be going over in just a minute over to the Florida Fast portal, and this is where we will find these resources for. I want to give you just a minute in case you want to take a picture of this screen and write this down. This is where you can find information about the FAST test and shifting over. So you can always check on this to go to where you can see for students and families where you will see practice tests and lots of other information about the the FAST test where they will have updates about the test. Okay. and we're going to go there in just a minute. And just make sure everyone's there. Okay, I was just checking that time. Okay, all right, so I'll go ahead and go there now and switch my screen over. So we'll take that and share the screen. Okay, so now you can see this is our FAST portal. All right, so on this FAST portal, when you go to the students and families, and this is where you can take the sample tests. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And this is where you can go into any of, you can go in, you don't have to sign in with any information here. You're just able to go in and sign in to take your FAST practice test, and you're able to go in from here. You would choose a grade level. I'm just going to choose fourth grade because that's the middle. And I just want to show you that you're able to see writing items and reading items and even math items. It shows you beyond that. These are high school or other end of course exams. So I'm not going to go beyond this, but I just wanted to show you what that looks like. So you're able to kind of do some of those sample items. And then I also wanted to scroll down for you here because this was the main thing I wanted to make sure you could see is that these are the resources that you have available to you that are beyond. This is, of course, for younger grade levels, but right here at the bottom, you have resources for students and families at the bottom. So these are your the fact sheet, I'm sorry, I said that too fast. Understanding the assessments, your family portal. This is where you would go to see your scores and your assessment resources and things like that. So that's all of the information that's additional. Anything else that you have questions about is there. Okay. So I'm going to go back over to that presentation. I'm going to switch that screen back over for a moment. And there we go. Okay. Okay. So again, that just shows you an overview of what you need there. Okay. So I also wanted to show you that your child will already be familiar with 3 virtual resources that we offer here at Duval County Public Schools. Um, Freckle, Amira, and Benchmark Education or Benchmark Universe. Freckle, right here at the top, this is something that we use in the classroom quite a bit it's by our company Renaissance. And this is an online library that we have in our classroom that offers online reading resources. Students are able to access Freckle from home through Renaissance, and students should be familiar with how to get to it. And we can post the link in the chat at the end as well. If anyone needs that link, we can go ahead and post that. So please go ahead and put that in the chat if your student is not familiar with how to get to Freckle through Renaissance. Please go ahead and post that in the chat. We also have another online reading resource, Amira, and that is available through our DCPS blended learning platform. So that's very easy to get to through DCPS blended learning, as well as Benchmark Education, and both of those have lots of online books as well that are accessible that way. Um, and I just put on screen for you some top Amira tips for parents that they have. Um, and so there is, with Amira, there's also some parent information that I will post in the chat at the end, um, because Amira has some additional tips for parents that gives you some things like this with a parent information, things like to practice reading together, just some extra support for your parent, for you as a parent, in case there was anything that you needed with that as you're setting that up. Okay. So we wanted to just show you that we have three that are already, these are all free things that DCPS has provided for you. We also have some additional resources and support that we wanted to offer to you and suggest. Um, Khan Academy, which will, again, we'll go there in just a few minutes at the end of the presentation. I'm actually going to take you there live. KhanAcademy.org. If you'd like to take a picture of these, and again, I will post those links for you in just a few minutes. This is a site that has various different learning activities. It is free. All of these are free. Um, that has different types of activities, learning activities that your students can do in different content areas, including reading. And then the Jacksonville Public Library is one that we wanted to include for you. I'm also going to take you there. The Jacksonville Public Library, not only can you go there directly to check out books, and students at the Jacksonville Public Library with their student ID, um, there are no late fees for the books that they check out. So if they do use their student ID for those, and I'm going to show you that there is a great virtual library with the Jack's Public Library that they have as well. And then I also am going to share with you this link to something called reciprocal teaching bookmarks. This is also by the Reading Rockets site that I shared some tips with you earlier that are called reciprocal teaching bookmarks. And the reason why we're sharing these with you, one thing that they shared about reciprocal teaching is that it encourages students to think about their own thought process during reading. It helps students to be actively involved and monitor their own comprehension as they read. So if they're struggling or just kind of thinking through, like, am I understanding what I'm reading? Maybe I need to slow down, things like that. This is something that we really work on with our students in the classroom as we're teaching them to read. And it teaches students to ask questions during reading so that it helps make the text more comprehensible. And so these particular bookmarks is something that you can actually print at home and make into their own little bookmark. And so you see a couple of pictures right here on the screen of what that looks like. And it's something that students can keep right there in their book to remind them of some things that they can be thinking about as they're reading to remind them of things. And this is very similar to a type of resource that we would be using in the classroom with them, and something that you could be using at home that would really be great for your students. So that is a link that, again, I'll post the link in the chat, but if you want to take a picture of that link real quick, and that'll be something that we would highly recommend that you use at home as well. So we do have a couple of recommendations for you about some things that you want to consider when students are kind of selecting some things. Students don't really have a lot of choice in the books and texts that they choose that they read at school. But when you're choosing things that they get to read at home, incorporating what they are interested in is really important. We also want to be mindful of the lexile level of the text, the reading ability of the student. So if you don't know what your child's level is, your child's teacher can provide that information. So we're going to show you a little bit more about that to consider. This is what a Lexile level, this is a little bit about what that might look like. But what's really important about how to understand that, if you're wondering about a book's Lexile level, you can always look at the back cover because some publishers have begun to print their Lexile levels on the backs of books. And there are also numerous apps and websites that can help you to determine that book's rating level. Um, what I want you to remember, though, as a lot of adult themed books are written even on an elementary level. So, an example of that would be like The Grapes of Wrath, which is a third grade level, or The Silence of the Lambs, which is also a third grade level. They may be able to read it ability wise, but content wise, it may not be as appropriate for them. So, a good general guide would be the 5 finger rule. Have your child turn to any page in a book and start reading, and ask your child to hold up one finger for each unfamiliar word on the page. If 5 fingers are up before finishing the page, then the book may be too difficult to read independently. And then this chart shows you the college and career readiness Lexile levels. Your student's teacher can give you your child's current Lexile based on their STAR assessment results, which come from their PM progress monitoring tests. The levels that are listed beneath that pink arrow on the screen, that is their end of the year expectation. Okay, so even if they're not there yet, that is what the expectation will be at the end of the year. So if you see on your screen in third grade, the goal for the expectation for the end of the year for Lexile level would be somewhere in the range of 520 Lexile level to 820 Lexile. That would put them on track. That would meet expectations. Okay. So that would be the goal by the end of third grade. Fourth grade, it would be somewhere in the range of 740 to 940. And then for fifth grade, somewhere in the range of 830 to 1010. Okay, so that would be the goal in third through fifth, if you could see where that is falling. Okay, so if you're choosing books at the public library, they are also very familiar with this Lexile leveling process as well. So they could help you choose books on your child's rating level. And again, you can check in with your child's teacher if you're not sure what your child's Lexile level is, and you want to check in to see, well, where is my child reading so I know kind of where they are. That will help you. Okay. We very much appreciate your support in developing your students' reading and writing skills. And please know that we're here to support you.
Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you. We
Absolutely.
appreciate you sharing your busy evening with us, and we hope to see you at another Parent Academy soon. Take care, everybody, and have a great night.